Oh, bother.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Yin Yang's Let's Talk. Now, today we're not going to be talking about sieges, but I promise we will get back to that. Instead, we're going to be covering the AMA from the XCA dev that happened a little less than a week ago over on the Reddit forum. Now, obviously, I'm not jumping on this as soon as it popped out, but that's because I want to take time, let everything shake out, try and confirm whether stuff is legitimate or not before I start making comments on it. So, my sources have all but confirmed the legitimacy of what this person is saying. Of course, to completely confirm it, they'd have to tell me who this person is, and I don't want to know, and they don't want to tell me. So, take everything that is going to be said here with a grain of salt, or a heaping tablespoon of salt if you prefer, but I think that it's a unique perspective and it's important that we take a look at it. And also, I do want to say just a big shout out to Victor from SusvileTW for putting this all together for us over on the Total War Warhammer Facebook group where he and I both moderate. If you like not being in a toxic environment but also love Total War, I suggest you go over there and join the community. It's a great community, and while there's toxicity everywhere, it's very much less so, at least less so than Reddit or the Steam forum. Again, I want to say thank you to Victor. If you haven't been over to SusvileTW, I'm going to be posting a link down in the description below. If you like my content, his is going to be very similar to mine, so go and check his out. He's got a more analytical take versus my more narrative take, but I think that there is a lot of value in the way that he records his videos, in the way that he actually gives descriptions of of tactics and balancing and all that, especially helpful to newer players who are wanting to try out a campaign for the first time, etc., etc. And guys, just so you're aware, I'm not going to be going through every line of this verbatim. I don't want to drag you all through that just because, well, first off, a lot of it starts to repeat itself. And then there's quite a bit here that really doesn't add anything to the conversation. And I don't want you guys to be sitting here listening to me read very poorly every single line of this. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight on in. So, question 1, why didn't you guys add cool stuff from historical titles like Fire, Rain, Night Battles, Encampment Battles, etc. to Warhammer 3? And this person is not the CA dev, but I do think that this is a very interesting answer. I'm not the CA dev. What they don't say here is that they are a developer for another game studio. But anyway, what they're saying here, not profitable enough. The cost to implement X feature is not going to affect sales enough to pay for itself. Some missing features are by design though. So let's just tackle the first part of what they said there. The cost to implement a feature is not going to affect sales enough to pay for itself. So in my experience, I've noticed things that just disappear from these games. Things like armor upgrades, things like flaming cities, right? Things like the grass burning around a body as it also burns because it was hit with a flaming artillery shell. Yeah, that kind of stuff we don't get anymore. And the reason for that is because the people who control the purse strings didn't see a bunch of chatter about how awesome that was. And this is the reason that I play Total War. They do hear our complaints, right? But we've got to do more than complain. We've got to talk about the things that we really enjoy about Total War so that those things do carry forward. If you need an example, just look at the DLC from game 1 all the way to game 3. What's different about it? And I'm not talking about the price, right? So don't go into the comment section and say the price is different. We know the price is different. But what I'm saying is, what is the difference between the kind of content we used to get versus what we get now? I'll tell you, it's monster heavy. And that's because the people who control the purse strings say, they like flashy monsters, we're gonna give them flashy monsters, even if they're repetitively flashy monsters looking at you, Jade and Jet Lion. But you get what I'm saying. So anyway, I'm not gonna linger on this anymore. Let's move on to the second question. Why was Warhammer 3 released in such a poor state? Response: I don't believe that they had fully grasped how bad it was before launch. I think they genuinely believed that they had a decent product. Okay, so this again is very important because and I think it's something that is going to actually solve itself here very soon. But when you get a company that starts getting a lot of bloat like this, you get people who basically invent their own kind of job. And I'm not saying that anybody was like just making stuff up to do, but they make themselves more busy to justify their being there. Either management does that or the people will do it themselves. I've seen this a lot in government and in the corporate world where it's basically it's bureaucracy, right? So the people who were talking to the content creators were telling the next line or the next people up on the ladder what they said, and then somewhere in 10,000 meetings that conversation just really got lost and it never made it to the people who could control the changes. And you know that they think that they had a good game just based off of all the interviews that they were doing. I know people say, oh, well, they got out there and they lied their ass off to sell this game. I don't think so. I don't think so. You don't get that kind of compassionate or passionate response from devs who really believe that they are selling a crappy game. You just don't. People don't go into game development to become con men. And while there is con men out there in the game development world, I don't see it from the people at CA. Anyway, once again, we have stumbled into a yin yang ramble, so let's keep going. Are there any Total War games that you play? Okay, that's one of those personal questions. You can read it. I'm not going to read it. This probably falls under NDA. Yes, it falls under NDA. We're going to skip that one. Did you make fun of hyenas or pharaoh with your coworkers? Okay, we don't care about that. Okay, 2 questions. How do they treat employees there? And is the tech debt thing I hear about an actual big deal? So this question is important, so let's get into it. Honestly, CA has been the best company I've worked for when it comes to how they treat their employees. It's even better than my current employer, though I'm earning more here. That's sad to hear. I felt like they genuinely cared about people. I never experienced crunch, and neither did anyone on my team or those I knew. They're flexible with time off. You can ask for paid leave with 0 notice, no questions asked. Wow. Leads are encouraged to be invested in your well-being, like there are mandatory monthly check-ins. Sometimes it actually became an issue. I'm not the only one thinking that, because they can be too lenient on low performers. Okay, so there's a lot to break down in this. First off, it's something that I've actually heard before, and I'm sure that you have too if you follow other content creators, but a lot of what the notion seems to be around CA is it's a starter company. And by starter, I mean, this is where you go to really get your experience and then you move on to something better paying, which seems to be what this dev did. Aside from that, I think that it's a really cool work environment based off of what they're saying. I, as a manager for, I don't know, 7 years, I think I was in corporate management. I can't imagine sitting down and having one-on-ones with my people every month. Now, did I make sure that they were good? Yeah. Could they come to me? Open door, of course. But I at no point had time to have one-on-ones with my staff outside of the mandatory 6-month or biannual one-on-ones that we would have, and we were pretty progressive in that. Or at least, you know, that's the way that we looked at it. But apparently CA's on top of it, and with the being lenient on low performers, that kind of thing happens when you don't have a high paying company. It does suck. You'd like to kick those people to the curb. I know that I've dealt with that myself, but if the pay isn't right, then you're not going to get those high performers. And that's just part of the that's just part of it. Moving on, the tech debt is a huge deal at CA. There was a lot of griping after the 3K postmortem, prompting them to take action. They assembled a team specifically for tackling tech debt. However, as of my departure, the results haven't quite materialized, leading to continued loud complaints internally. It's one of the major pain points for people working there. So, this again, I mean, we've talked about the tech debt before. Obviously, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to dig into the technical aspects of tech debt, but we did talk about it before, and it's something that's going to take years to fix. They're going to have to go all the way back to basically the base of the Warscape engine, which I think was like Empire Total War, to really get at what the core issues are. And I don't know that that is something that is really feasible to see within the next year or even 2 years. But hopefully we see it, and we'll see how that all pans out. Are CA looking at Total War Warhammer as their flagship title? How much do GW have a hold over the creative process? Most likely under NDA, but how much profit do they take in? Okay, so internally there are two Total War branches, historical and fantasy. Somehow I see historical as the main branch, and I think others do too. Nevertheless, we were well aware that Warhammer was the one keeping the lights on. So basically, what they're saying here is, or basically what I'm picking up from this is, hey guys, you don't have to be afraid that Total War is going to fail. Or Total War Warhammer is going to fail unless Total War fails itself, because it is the one keeping the lights on. They're going to keep making content for it until they have a solid, not Pharaoh, a solid game to replace it with. So, until they launch Medieval 3, I wouldn't start shaking in your boots over Warhammer. Okay, how aware are they of the bad state of the nitty-gritty battlefield issues like pathfinding, line of sight, basic unit interactions, unit responsiveness, cohesion, etc.? Is it much of a priority to address this stuff? Do discussions about these things go on? And they talk about the oh, okay, so this is the same question, sorry. What is their stance on the technical debt issues? Things improving in the house dev pool? They're very aware, but there's a constraint on budget for each project DLC patch. Hence, decisions must be made regarding priorities, whether to focus on new content or addressing existing issues. So basically, what they're saying here is that yes, they're aware, but you can only fit so much into a budget. And I think that we saw this, and it got overshadowed by all the drama. But we saw this in Shadows of Change, where they tried to fix a whole lot of stuff, but um, like I said, that got overshadowed. I mean, those patch notes were extensive, guys, and while there was just a huge amount of hot fixes that had to come after all those patches that were done, and that's of course going to fall back on the tech debt issue. Um, there's a lot of work that goes into them trying to fix the game while they're creating DLC, and I think that it takes away from time, obviously, but as well as the DLC budget, and that's why we've been seeing less content, because they're still trying to fix this game, this massive, uh, you know, creaking at the holes or creaking at the walls game, because it wasn't built right to begin with, and that's just part of the unfortunate series of events that have led us here. Anyway, why did three why did we kill Three Kingdoms? It's one of the best ones. Their response: I'm with you. The DLCs weren't profitable, so they had to halt development on them. That's just straight up. That's what it is. And that's what the big concern is with Warhammer, is if the DLCs aren't making money, they will stop making them. When I talked about in oh gosh, I think this was 2 or 3 Let's Talks ago, about how Rob said the wrong thing at the wrong time, but was actually being pretty honest with us. That's that's what he means. I mean, I'm sure he was there for for 3K to go down. So he knows, if anybody knows, your entire project could just fall apart if you're not making enough money to keep it going. Unfortunate, but there it is. Moving on. Don't know if this is in the NDA field. Um, but did consider, okay, Game of Thrones. That's cool. What do you think of the Warscape engine? Is it hindering the company, or are concerns about it overblown? I believe it's somewhere in the middle, not quite hindering the company, but it would significantly benefit from attention. The improvements wouldn't necessarily be visible to players and mainly involve the development process, making the development process smoother. The team is working on the tech debt, or the team working on the tech debt is looking into it from what I've gathered. So, guys, again, with the tech debt, and we're going to stop touching on the tech debt unless they really just come out with something that just blows our mind. But this has really gotten popular amongst the Total War community, that if they just fix the tech debt, everything will be fine. It's not the magic bullet. It's not the silver bullet, excuse me. It's going to help, right? If they're not having to stop and bandage up everything all the time while they're trying to make content, yeah, that would be great, and we'd see more content from it. But it doesn't mean that it would fix some of the core issues with Total War, and hopefully they're able to push past it. But again, it's not the end all be all. Them fixing the tech debt is something we probably will never even realize happened. Um, we'll probably just say, "Wow, CA is really pumping out more content nowadays," and we'll never know the actual reason why they're able to do so, unless we get more leaks, which it's a pretty leaky ship. So, why isn't CA working on proper slash more advanced AI? I'm not sure if this falls under NDA. Are they working on a more proper or on a proper more advanced AI? If it's yes, then they are. If it's no, it's because they feel like they need to prioritize something more important. That really speaks for itself, so we're not going to go into that. I'm seeing a lot of tight budget answers. What exactly is CA doing with all the massive amount of money and success they got from Total War Warhammer, other than hyenas, unless that was completely draining the budget, because it felt they only had a barely functional skeleton crew in the past. Okay, so this is important. I'm just going to go ahead and read it. There's never enough money, and I don't think Total War rakes in the massive amounts like some less niche games do. I'm going to copy paste my thoughts about hyenas from another comment. So this is just them talking about hyenas. I'm going to let you guys read this. So please pause it here if you want to read what they're saying. But basically what they're saying is, when you are a company that is a subsidiary of another company, they control how the budgets work. The Total War budget has no effect on the hyenas budget. Everybody likes to think that they understand how business works, but if you don't go to business school or haven't worked in a corporation with this kind of setup, then you probably don't actually know how it works. So, and again, guys, that's not me coming at you, but everyone can't be an expert in everything, even in the information age. So, again, let's keep it going. Is CA ruled by Skavens? We're gonna skip that. It is funny, but we're gonna skip that. How is the climate at CA? We've already talked about that. In several of your answers, you referred to budget issues and scheduling restrictions. By the time you left, would you say that these became more prominent, or were they always a big problem during your time in the studio? definitely became more prominent over time. The 3K DLC not selling was the first instance in my memory where things were not profitable. That does suck. Does CA use any QA? Because a lot of the time it feels like they don't even play their own game. Yeah, they've got a full QA department, and they even bring in Sega's QA when necessary. However, I don't find it effective. They used to test extensively at the end of development and then rush to address issues. Now they're shifting towards testing throughout development. That's actually a good thing, or at least in my opinion. Again, I don't know how it works. It seems like it would be a better thing to continuously test while the game's being made, so that you don't get to the end and have a bunch of crap to clean up. Um, the absence of automated tests is astonishing. They really need more of those. Everything is manual. Of course, you need money to implement automated tests. It often boils down to the question, do we have enough money for this? Even if QA spots problems, fixing that requires budget, and I think the budgets are pretty tight. So they're stuck deciding between issues to prioritize for fixing. And that's basically what I was saying before, where it comes down to, hey, can we get all these fixes in? Well, yeah, but we're gonna have to sacrifice these units in this DLC just because they don't have the money for it, and that sucks. But money is it's a finite resource. It seems like there's always a lot of it going around, and just like this person's question, they think that Total War Warhammer is just like it's brought in so much massive amounts of money, but the way that it has to climb up to Sega, and then Sega gets to dictate the next steps, right? It's not like CA says, all right, this was a super profitable game, let's use this to fund the next thing. That's not how it works. Any reason why they killed Three Kingdoms? Yeah, we talked about that. What's the development process there? Concept, pre-production, production, release, and live support. There's a tendency to switch game leadership when it transitions to live support. While the game is defined, and live support is DLC if you don't know. While the game is defined in pre-production, not all questions are resolved, leading to challenges. A pain point at CA. That makes a lot of sense. So they bring up these issues as they're going through this process, and sometimes they get addressed, sometimes they don't. Throughout production, the game undergoes refinement, traditionally testing towards the latter stages. However, there's a shift towards improved testing throughout the entire development cycle lately. That's good. That's good. So, and they say that a lot, like it's being tested throughout lately, which to me indicates that they're already like well into the next Total War, and it's going to be a lot more thoroughly checked. And again, like if you look at Pharaoh, you can see the kind of shift that has happened because Pharaoh is really well developed. It's just, it's unfortunately not that interesting to the community, and apathy is where projects go to die, unfortunately. Okay, moving on. I don't know what 20.1 is. Oh, this was a follow-up. So, neat. I was thinking more from the perspective of a dev working on the game. Do y'all use sprints, set goals? Just curious about the process. Sorry, yeah, they operate in 2-week sprints, following the Scrum methodology. I don't know anything about that, guys. So if you do know about that, then go for it. But I have no idea. Please drop it down in the comment section below. So because I love to learn, but I don't understand what they're really talking about here. So I do apologize about that. What games did you work on? Only Total War games. I hope that's specific enough. I'd rather avoid details that could identify me. Fair enough. Another follow-up. I always wondered how CA goes about choosing what time period to make a game. Do you have any insight on that? People present their pitch to the leadership. It's cross-referenced with other player references. That's cool. I don't know where they're getting Bronze Age from, but hey, cool enough. And if there's a substantial alignment, it gets submitted to Sega for approval. It involves a blend of the development team's preferences, the technological possibilities, and the predictions about what the players will engage with. So that actually, and I've heard this said before, but I bet that the high download numbers from Total War Troy uh, made them think that people were really interested in that time period, and that's why Pharaoh got the green light. Again, who knows? And again, guys, Pharaoh's a pretty solid game. It's just for me at least, it's not an interesting time period, and that's why I haven't covered it yet on the channel. Although I do plan to. Are there any historical or are there any historical periods that developers would love to do, but know that there's no commercial demand for? Bronze Age, apparently. So that's I'm sorry. uh, 21.3 off the back of this. Why did CA opt for Pharaoh? I would after this we're not going to talk about Pharaoh anymore. I would say Pike and Shot, Empire 2, or Medieval 3 were guaranteed wins for them. I'm not sure why they went for Pharaoh. Maybe they figured there was more demand. It seems like it was a low risk move after Troy. Okay, so it was. That's exactly what it was. I don't think that they felt ready for Sophia to tackle a big one like Medieval and Empire, which is a shame because I think that CA Sophia has shown that they've got the chops to handle something like that. And if they wanted to, if CA wanted to dump something big on them, then CA could be developing Empire 2 or Medieval 3 while Sophia develops the other one. And I think that you would have a real cool dichotomy there. But again, that's I'm not an expert, so what do I know? And this just continues. 21.4. I'm not suggesting they drained resources from Total War. I'm saying a Troy reskin or light rework on the same core can't have cost what they say. Okay, so this is getting into the cost of Troy. I'm not going to get into this because this is just a lot of drama. And I don't know where they're getting the $70 price tag. We don't have $70 here in the US. Maybe that's like Canada or something. I don't know. 21.5. Think that's true from like a business management perspective, but but not from a budgeting perspective. Yes, there's no reason to think that you can spend $100 million on whatever. Okay, so guys, this looks like it's mostly just about all of that drama. So we're going to move to the last question and then we'll wrap it up. How did Rob write such an awful blog post? How did they think it was a good idea? Was it really him? Okay. So here we go. I don't want to touch on the drama, but we're going to touch on this one. Response: I have no clue. I had already left by then. Does it matter? I find the reactions from some folks quite shocking. He gets slammed for a bad blog post and suddenly he's the root of all evil. I never worked with him directly. Honestly, just going with my gut, he wasn't my favorite C-suit, but the guy stuck around at CA for like 10 years or something. He must care. Well, and they're saying that because I'm sure that there is, like, from their perspective, they got a better offer and they jumped ship versus him who's just stayed there. I believe he's the one who brought GW to CA and handled the partnerships. He's still a human being. He's not fueling a Ferrari with the blood of players and developers. Those who made him a scapegoat should feel ashamed of themselves. And that's a really strong point to end this on. And something that I touched on not too long ago. Did he say the wrong thing at the wrong time? Absolutely. Absolutely, he said the wrong thing at the wrong time. That being said, he wasn't lying to us. What he was saying was factual information. It is a shame that he's kind of taken the bullet as the bad guy. I don't think that and this harkens back to a little bit of something that I had gotten into a back and forth with someone about the other day. We, especially on the internet, find a reason to always put someone in a black and white column when people are all in shades of gray, and just because they say something distasteful or off-putting to you doesn't mean that they're equivalent to the word to the you know people who commit true atrocities out there. So with all of that being said, guys, to all my friends wherever you are, good morning, good evening, and good night. Stay positive out there, and I'll see you in the next episode.